Yeah, so chapter 14, part 1. The only difference between chapter 13, part 1 and 2 is now we're going to complicate or have the interest rate given as more of a complication. So the interest rate we've already dealt with, if it's given as a periodic interest rate, or if you have a periodic interest rate, you change it into an annual rate by multiplying. If it's a monthly periodic, you multiply by 12. If it's a daily periodic, you multiply by 365. All depends on how many of those time periods there are in the year. So we learn about comparing different interest rates to determine which interest rate is more and which is less. So the proper way of doing this is to make all of them into one interest rate and then they can be compared. So we will also learn about how to convert a particular nominal interest rate to another interest rate which is nominal with a different compounding period. That requires 5 steps using your calculator. And we'll again talk about fully amortized loans, interest-only loans, and interest accruing loans. So let's get started. Hello, everyone. Chapter 14, part 1. We've taken chapter 14 and separated into 2 parts. Chapter 14, part 1 goes further than chapter 13. In chapter 13, we learned about any type of loan that we wanted to solve an unknown amount. And remember, our variables are, if we take a look at the calculator, our variables are N, interest rate per year, which is same as nominal rate, present value, payment. In the calculator, the word payment should be payments because it's how much payments there are for the time period. And FV stands for future value. So we're going to go through the same thing in chapter 14. Chapter 13 and 14 are basically identical. The only difference in chapter 14 is the hardest part of this course is understanding and dealing with the J value and understanding and dealing with the I value. The little I stands for the periodic rate, and the capital J is the nominal rate with a different compounding period. So chapter 14 is all about understanding the J and the I values. The rest of the arithmetic, the rest of the mathematics, the rest of the N and the PV and the FV are identical to chapter 13. So let's get started. Okay, we discussed the J value. J is the nominal interest rate per year, per annum. The word annum is the same as per year. Okay. And when we have that 1 underneath the J, that tells you that it's one compounding period for the entire year. So J stands for the nominal interest rate, and the little subscript number stands for how many times compounding is happening in that year. So J2 would be 2 compounding periods. J4 would be quarterly compounding, which is 4 compounding periods per year. J12 would be 12 compounding periods per year. And J365 would be daily compounding. And in here, we can also put in JW, that would be weekly compounding. It wouldn't be JW, it would be J52, and that would be 52 compounding periods in 1 year. Okay, we already discussed that you have to be very careful when you have a loan, your PV will be a positive value. And usually, if you're going to make payments to reduce that loan, those payments will be a negative value. When you do an investment, your PV will be a negative value, and payment or the further investments in that time period could be a withdrawal. If it's a withdrawal, it's positive. And if it's more investment during that time period, that payments amount would be a negative. Okay, so little I stands for periodic interest rate, little I. And we have in a year, we have different periods. We have days. So it would be I with a tiny little d, and that's for periodic interest rate per day. We could have an IW, which would be the interest rate for a week. We could have an I month M, which would be interest rate for a month. We could have I quarterly Q, which would mean that the interest rate is for the quarter of the year, which is 3 months for the year of the year. And ISA, which stands for 6 months, this would be the rate for the 6 months, which is the same as saying semi-annual rate, which would be I with a tiny little SA. And we do have I with an A, but we very seldom we would put I with a little a, because that's same as J with a 1. Okay, so we learned how to take the I value and convert it or change it into a J value. So whenever you have an I value, let's say it's IM, you multiply by 12, and that gets you J12. If you have ISA, then you multiply by 2 because there's 2 periods in the year. That would become J2. If you have IQ, you would multiply by 4. If you have IM, you multiply by 12. If you have ISA, you multiply by 2, and that gives you your J value, because the J value is what's required for all calculations. And also, when we're comparing the interest rate between different lenders or interest rate for deposits, we should always compare apples to apples. And by that, I mean get every interest rate converted to J1, and then you can see which one's lower and which one's higher. Let's take a look at an example. Let's say we have 3 banks, Bank A, Bank B, and Bank C, and they're advertising their bank rates, either their lending rates or investment rates. Let's say they're just saying these are their rates, and the rates are advertised as a monthly periodic rate. First of all, banks are not legally supposed to advertise the rates as a monthly rate. Federal Interest Rate Act says that all rates, all lenders must advertise rates, interest rates as either J1 or J2. And this would not be in compliance, but we're just looking at an example. So if you were a depositor and you wanted to invest some money into a bank, you would go to Bank C. If you were a borrower and you wanted to borrow money, you would go to Bank A. Very easy to see, because all A, B, and C banks have the same periodic rate given, but the amount is easy to figure out which one's less, which one's more. Okay, another situation, we have a Bank A, Bank B, and Bank C, and they're advertising their rates with J1. Bank A, their rate is 10.5%. Bank B, their rate is 10.75%. And Bank C, their rate is 11.0. Because they are all advertising with J1, that is legal. That is, according to Federal Interest Act, it is allowed. It's in compliance. And for the consumer, for the borrower, for the lender, and for all other people that are relying on the information from the bank, it's very easy to compare. They can see that Bank A has the lowest rate, and they can see that the Bank C has the highest rate. So if a person was to borrow money, he would probably go to Bank A. If a person was to deposit money, he would probably go to Bank C, if other condition, depending on other conditions also. Another example, example 3, we have same 3 banks. Bank A, they're all advertising it with monthly compounding, annual rate with monthly compounding. As long as they're all advertising with the same monthly compounding and annual rates, easy to compare. So we can see that Bank A has a lower rate than Bank B and C, and Bank C has the highest rate. Okay, another situation, we have 3 banks, Bank A, Bank B, and Bank C, and Bank A has a monthly rate of 2%. Bank B has an annual rate with one compounding period, 11%, and Bank C has an annual rate with two compounding periods per year. Now, what's going to happen in this situation, it's confusing. We wouldn't know which bank has a higher rate because they all are using a different, either a different periodic rate or different J compounding rate. So the only way to compare between bank A, B, and C to see which one's lower and which one's higher is to make sure that they all have the same, either they're all using IM or they're all using J1 or they're all using J12. They all have, in this situation, every bank is using a different, require a different part, and it's very difficult to compare. Very difficult to compare. So let's say all banks are using the J value, but they're using a different compounding period. Again, it's going to be very, very difficult to compare which bank has the lower rate, which bank has the higher rate. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to change all the rates to J1. Okay, this is called conversion. Okay, we can take any J value and convert it to any other J value. But in order to compare, the method of comparison is to get all the rates to J1, and then it's very easy to see which one is higher and which one is lower. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to change
convert
all the rates.
Okay, so we want to learn
Okay,
this is called J2 equal 3%.
We can take
and what
any
would
J
be the value of that
and
in
convert
J1?
it to any other
So
J value.
it's called the 5 steps.
In order to
let me show you how it's done. So we have J2 equals 3%. So let's put that information in first.
To
so
J1
2 for the
and
compounding.
It's very easy to see
and 3
which one is
for the
higher
nominal
and which one is lower.
Those are your first 2 steps. So let me clear this again. This is the hardest part of this course. So we're taking J2 equals 3% and we're going to convert it into J1. Whenever we have to compare the rates, it's always the best thing is to make all of them into J1s, and then it's very easy to compare. So let's take J2 equals 3 first. Those are your step 1 and 2. So 2 and the 3, there's your step 1 and step 2 done. What is step 3? Step 3 is probably the easiest step. It's the middle of these two, and you press it with a second function. You're getting into what's called the effective. Effective, I'm going to tell you now and later on, is J1. So technically we could stop here, but I'm going to teach it the 5-step method because then every question can be done. So let's do this again. I'll do it faster afterwards. What's step 1? 2. And step 2, done. Step 3, there. Now step 4 is what are we converting to? We want to convert to J1. So step 4 is 1. And step 5 is our answer. What are we looking for? We're looking for what is J1 equal to. That's second function, no. So 3.0225 is equal to J2 equal to 3%. They're equal. So let me do that again. So J2 equal to 3% is equal to J1 3.025. Okay, let's do this one more time. Okay, so we're going to take J2 equals 3%. That's step 1. And 3% step 2. What's the middle step? Step 3 is there's the middle step. And step 4, what are we looking for? We're looking for J1. And the answer is step 5. So what we figured out is what is J2 equal to 3% equal to in terms of J1. So let me do that again for you. So J2 equal 3%. First step, 2, and then the 3, that's your step 2. Step 3 is this one and this one. Step 4 is what are we looking for? 1. And the final answer, that's equal to J2 equal 3. Let's do another one. Let's say we have J2 equal 4. How much is that in J1s? Okay, so again, clear. What's J2 equal 4? So 2, 4, that's step 1 and 2. Step 3, middle. Step 4 is what are we looking for? We're looking for J1, so 1 and the answer. That's step 5. So step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me do that again for you. Okay, let's do that in the third question. We want to convert J2 equal 5.5 to J1. Okay, first thing, clear the calculator. So J2 equals 5.5. 2, 5.5. There's your step 1 and 2, step 2 done. And step 3 is this one. No numbers go in. In step 3, you just press this and this. Okay. Step 4, what are we looking for? We're looking for J1, so 1. And now what's the answer? 5.57. Okay, so there's 5 steps in conversion, converting a J value of some compounding period to a J value of another compounding period. Okay, so I'll do the first one again for you. So J2, there's your 2. How much is it? 3%. That's your step 1 and 2. Now, step 3, there's no number that goes in. It's just pressing second function and the effective button right here. What's step 4? Step 4 is what are we looking for? We're looking for J1. So 1 and the answer. There's your step 5. Good. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to change all the rates to J1. Okay, this is called conversion. Okay, we can take any J value and convert it to any other J value. But in order to compare, the method of comparison is to get all the rates to J1, and then it's very easy to see which one is higher and which one is lower.
Let's do another conversion. We're going to convert J12 equal 3% into J1 of some percent. We don't know how much percentage in J1 is the same as J12 of 3%. So let's bring in the calculator. It's 5 steps, and I showed you that it can be done in 3 steps, but let's get really good at the 5 steps, then later on we'll cut it down to 3 steps. So let's get started. Clear screen. We're converting J12 equal 3% into J1. So 12, that's step 1. And 3%, step 2. Step 3 is no number entering, just pressing second function effective. Now, what you see on the screen is J1. That's what I mean by 3 steps. If all you needed to do was convert to J1, this is all you would have to do. But if you're going to convert to anything, including J1, you press 1. That's step 4. And step 5 is not putting any number in, but finding the number. So that's second function, this one. Okay, so 3.04 is the same as 3 with a J12. Let's do that quickly. And once you get good at this, do this many times, you'll get good at it. So 12 and 3, that's your step 1 and 2. There's your step 3. Step 4 is 1. And step 5 is your answer. Done. Okay, let's do an example. Let's say we have 3 banks, Bank A, Bank C, B, and Bank C. And they all have 8% as their rate, but they all have a separate compounding rate. Bank A is J1, Bank B is J2, Bank C is J12. Now, in order for you to find and rate these and see which one's lower rate and which one's higher rate, or rank them from lowest to highest, put them all as J1s. Let me show you how that's done. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to bring in a calculator and show you that all of them, I'm going to change all of them into a J1 to rank them. Okay, clear the calculator. So first thing I'm going to do is Bank A. I'm going to convert Bank A's rate into J1. Well, it's already done. So J1, it was given to us. There's nothing to do for Bank A. Let's see what we have to do for Bank B. Bank B, J2 is given, so we need to convert that into J1. Let me do that for you. So J2 equals 8 is given. So 2, 8,